Hey, friendo, Steve here. Welcome to the very first episode of MFTV. That's right, Untitled Steve News is a thing of the past. I told you guys I'd be rebranding this, so here it is. What's different about it? Nothing really, but Untitled Steve News really isn't an actual title that I could have used long term. What does it matter, right? MFTV, figure my Twitter handle is MFSteve here, stands for My Friendo Steve here, in case you've ever wondered. This is My Friendo TV, even though it's on the internet. I just think it has a good ring to it. So here we are, very first episode of MFTV. Hopefully everybody out there had a good holiday season and had a good New Year's, and you guys are safe and you're happy to be here in the 2021. I know I am. Me and Lacey had a pretty mellow kickback New Year's. And I figured what better way to get started with the very first episode of MFTV than to talk about the biggest movie release of the Christmas day. It happened right here in our homes via HBO Max, and I'm talking about, of course, Wonder Woman 84. It also debuted in theaters, in the movie theaters, but obviously a lot of people, because the vaccine hasn't really been distributed to many people at this point. Nobody's going to the movie theaters. I know. I think it got like 20 million in its first weekend, which is probably like 1/10 of what it would have done had there not been a pandemic. But it probably did huge numbers on HBO Max for HBO Max. So I was very happy to watch it in my home with my family on Christmas, and I figured I'd give you guys my thoughts about Wonder Woman 84. I'll just kick things off like this, in a nutshell. Wonder Woman 1984. Have you guys ever watched a movie that you're sort of, relatively enjoying it as it's going on? You're like, yeah, this movie's pretty decent. It's fun enough. It's relatively entertaining. But you kind of know deep down that there's like some severe flaws with it. And then by the time you get to the end, you're like, yeah, it was okay. It was pretty decent. Then a day goes by and you're like, boy, that movie really wasn't all that great. And then you realize, the movie was kind of just a turd. That's where I landed on Wonder Woman 84. There were things I liked about it, but in the end, that movie missed way more than it hit. And I'll tell you why. First up, the things that I liked about Wonder Woman 84. Number one, I thought the cast was really spectacular. They found a way to bring Chris Pine back as Steve Trevor, Diana's love interest. I thought he was a bright spot of the movie. And in fact, I feel like the two main villains of the movie, played by Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal, really elevated otherwise pretty gnarly material. Kristen Wiig, I thought, was actually really good because she can play a wide range. It's kind of interesting with Kristen Wiig. She hasn't really taken the same route that I figured she would have. And a lot of other comedians that were popular in Saturday Night Live coming out of that show have taken. She has been a bit more picky with like her movie roles. And I appreciate that. I think she's great. I think she's a really terrific comedian. And in this, I thought that she was actually able to show off a wider range of what she can do, even if the material really wasn't all that up to the task. I thought she was pretty good in her role as the cheetah, whatever her actual name was in the movie. I don't even have that written down. Pedro Pascal playing one of my favorite characters in DC Comics history, Maxwell Lord. Of course, he was one of the centerpieces of my favorite comic book series of all time, Justice League America, and then Justice League International, dropped like in 1987. It's just a really terrific run, and they introduced the character of Max Lord. And it was cool kind of to see that character and his main story arc from back then be sort of translated for the big screen. I thought Pedro Pascal, and they made some changes to the character, of course, but I thought Pedro Pascal, obviously these days coming hot off The Mandalorian, and those seasons, the season 2 just wrapped up. He was really fantastic. I think he elevated a lot of the stuff that really was not all that great, because he really did give it his all. I thought the character actually did have some decent dimension to it. Obviously he's playing, the parallels are kind of obvious that he's playing sort of a Trump type character in this. And I thought that, but a guy who, unlike Trump, actually has kind of a soul. You can sort of see that in there. And I thought Pedro Pascal as Max Lord was really great. I enjoyed seeing that character come to the big screen. And in fact, I really hope that, that isn't the last we've seen of that particular character in the DC cinematic universe. Chris Pine, he's great in everything. Chris Pine is really just a super charismatic, really funny guy. He's terrific in this. Gal Gadot, of course, is really great. I really actually enjoyed a lot of the stuff that was more of a throwback to the old Richard Donner movies, the Superman movies, the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies that were directed by Richard Donner. The opening scene, not the prologue, but the opening scene at the mall where Wonder Woman takes out some petty criminals, I thought was a pretty big, callback to those old movies. And I thought that was a lot of fun. And there were aspects of the movie after that I thought felt very much like, at certain times, Maxwell Lord did sort of remind me of Gene Hackman's portrayal of Lex Luthor back in those old movies. So there were things like that, those movies by and large made in the late 70s, early 80s, that I thought were fun throwbacks. So yeah, I like that stuff. I liked all the stuff with her flying. I thought that was kind of cool. And then the invisible jet, even though it didn't make any sense that jet could make it from Washington DC to Cairo without refueling. That didn't make any sense. But no, I thought that was some cool stuff there. What I didn't like, basically the entire script. I thought that this was a 2.5 hour movie that probably should have been closer to like an hour and 45 minutes. It was needlessly complicated. And in fact, I thought that the main problem with it is that from the jump, they didn't really establish very many rules behind the concept of the Wish Stone, which Maxwell Lord then became sort of the living embodiment of this Wish Stone, which, would grant him the power to grant wishes in return for something that he would demand of the people that he's giving the wish to. It's a very nebulous, abstract concept that we're dealing with here that they didn't really establish, very many rules for. Like what can be done, what can be undone. Are there effects of things? So, for example, when, towards the finale, when that dude tells that lady to drop dead and she does she come back to life because he renounces his wish? What can be undone from that? There are too many concepts in this movie that just seemed like they were thrown at a wall, and some of them stuck, some of them didn't, but they just kept everything they had. And that was my main issue with it, was that I think that there was a really cool concept here, because the idea of the Wish Stone I thought was a really cool, and that also felt like a throwback concept to like some 80s movies. But I thought it was a really cool concept that really could have fit in with the time period, the 80s, which were known for, excess. And they played with that concept. I mean, Maxwell Lord's character obviously was the embodiment of excess as well. He was trying to just consume as much as he could. But that's sort of a very blunt force trauma way of dealing with that theme. And especially themes that we see play out in, in society today: instant gratification, social media, sort of entitlement. There are some things that I think they really could have had a good time playing with, but it was so all over the map that none of it really landed. And I wonder if it might be because when you're dealing with like a big studio flick like this, the studio might not allow the filmmakers to take those kinds of risks when you're dealing with material like that. That's just sort of one idea. Patty Jenkins recently went on record saying the entire fight scene at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie, which is a pretty decent movie, wasn't something that she wanted. The studio insisted they do it. That's why it looked kind of cheap, because they didn't really have much of a budget for that. I am kind of curious how much studio interference there was with this movie, because it was just sort of a mess. There was just they go to Cairo just for like, literally they just go there for like a car chase scene, which just seemed really haphazardly put together anyways. That really was unnecessary, but it's a superhero movie, so you got to have an action set piece, right? And then you have the same thing at the end. Everything always comes down to a big fist fight with her and Cheetah, and then she just sort of kills Cheetah. Spoiler alert. So the movie just seemed like a mess. I've also read, not just in one place, but many places, the the sticky situation of Steve Trevor sort of quantum leaping into the body of another person, and that person then having, because it's now Chris Pine's character, having sleeping with Wonder Woman, and them basically doing what they want with his body, which I totally get. I kind of feel like, because it's such a goofy fantasy movie, that it's kind of a non-issue, but I totally understand why people are bringing it up. And to me, it could have been a non-issue, because why did they need to have his character sort of leap into somebody else's body? If this wish stone is completely based off of, hey, I wish something to happen. Did Diana wish that Chris Pine's character, that Steve Trevor, would be quantum leaped into a completely different person? I mean, why couldn't her have wish just been, hey, his airplane appears up here and he's still alive? He teleported in time. I get maybe that they felt that was necessary for him then to be wished gone, but they could have just done that anyways. I don't know. I didn't think it was necessary. Like, why did you need to have another dude's body be the vessel for Chris Pine's consciousness? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, that's my main takeaway from Wonder Woman. Thought it was a solid concept, actually a pretty decent premise, because it was different. It wasn't just big bad guy shows up and then does a bunch of mean stuff. It was, a concept that really could have played on people's emotions, on their wishes, their dreams, their hopes. And they tried to do that, but my God, it was just a really big mess with a resolution that really sort of, betrayed their own logic. So yeah, that's my takeaway on Wonder Woman 84. Let me know what you guys thought of the movie in the comments below. If there's anything else you want to see right here at MFTV, let me know. I saw this article the other day about a McDonald's menu item in China that's 2 pieces of Spam and a crumbled up Oreo cookie on a bun. I might try to replicate that here in my own kitchen. So I might do that for MFTV. If there's anything else you guys want me to talk about, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to be talking about the random shit that interests me. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. Happy New Year's, and I'll talk to you guys later.